dust. Grab your cell phones and text somebody and tell them, say, hey, I'm missing you. I love you. I'd love to see you. You're on my mind. You're on my heart. I'm all about what God is doing today. Grab a Connect card. Fill that out. We've got some folks. Jason Blaylock's been in the hospital this week. So just, anybody that you know that needs an encouragement, write it down. Drop it into the dollar point box. Drop it. Give it to someone with a Blue Serve Team lanyard or the Welcome Center and say, hey, can you make sure this gets to them? And we will. We will. By the way, dollar point, let me just always remind us that dollar point boxes are there for us to drop a dollar on the way in and drop a dollar on the way out. And we're able this very week to do something in one of the lives in Smithville from Dollar Point giving. So it's just great and it's awesome. So we're able to help somebody, and we will have a video on that pretty soon. So don't forget that the vision at Christ Point Church, in case you're visiting with us, this is how we roll. So the vision is we're just real people. We live in real lives, and we're serving a real God, and that will be an upcoming sermon series on our vision. So we're real people, living real lives, serving a real God. Welcome home. We want to tell everybody, always welcome home. TV viewers, man, thank you guys for jumping on board with us. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us. Radio, thank you for tuning in. I so appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Facebook Live, thumbs up to you guys. Social media, YouTube. We are Christ Point Church. We're one church in 2 locations, several media outlets, and we want to tell you, welcome home. It's good to have each and every one of you with us. New Year's Revolution. New Year's Revolution. This is our last sermon on this series. New Year's Revolution. But wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. We're going to get to that. 1964. 1964. One guy revolutionized the way that we purchase. He revolutionized the way that we purchase, and his name is Ron Popeil. So, he revolutionized TV with the infomercial. See, we didn't have that. I don't know before 1964 anyway, but we didn't have that apparently before 1964. It is now we have a lot of infomercials. His phrases are actually patented or copywritten, I guess. They are copywritten, set it and forget it. Set it and forget it, and oh, but wait, there's more. See, there's always more. See, the Ronco company made millions of dollars with items like the Veg-O-Matic, the Chop-O-Matic, and the Dial-O-Matic. It was Dyno-Matic. So I'm just telling you, hey, a revolutionary appliance that you could set it and forget it. And here's my favorite part. When they do that, they span the people who are sitting there, and it's like they have just witnessed Jesus walk through the room. I mean, they're just so excited. You're like, really? I mean, you couldn't act any better than that. You're hired to do this. The revolutionary appliance that you set it and forget it for only $9.95. But wait, there's more. See, but wait, there's more. Order in the next 10 minutes and you get not one, but you get 2 revolutionary Veg-O-Matics for the price of 1. Wow. But wait, there's more. Use special code 132, and that don't mean anything. They just give you a code. Use special code 132 and receive a set of Ginsu knives absolutely free for a special gift from us to you today. But let me just break this down for you. You know what the Dial-O-Matic was, don't you? The Dial-O-Matic was the Chop-O-Matic with the upgraded to 10 speeds. From 8 to 10 speeds. You know what the Chop-O-Matic was, don't you? It was the Veg-O-Matic with stainless steel blades. I'm making all this up. If you Google it, I might be wrong. Probably am. You know what the Veg-O-Matic was, don't you? It was a blender. That's what it was. It was a blender. And they sold multi-millions of blenders with one simple sales pitch. But wait, there's more. See, but wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. And you're glued. People back in the 60s, man, they were like, oh, what is going to be more? Something's about to come. So we get 2. Oh, my gosh. We get 2 of what we will never use. It's great. And we bought them. We bought them like crazy. See, I Googled See, this guy was an inventor. I Googled the top inventions of our time, or not our time, in history, in the history of man. I Googled inventions. Some of those that came up were the wheel, electricity, vaccines, the computer, the internet. There's a lot of them on there. One that I didn't agree with, one was on there, was that man invented fire. That's like inventing the Grand Canyon. You don't invent fire. You discover fire maybe, but you don't invent fire. But see, those are just to name a few. See, but all inventions, great and small, they begin with a Ronco mentality. There's got to be more. All inventions, there's got to be more than this. See, an engineer at Motorola by the name of Marty Cooper, he said that Ronco statement. He said there's got to be more. There's got to be more. He asked a question sitting at a table many, many years ago, and this question was, why is it that when we want to talk to an individual, we have to call a place? Now, if you're under the age of 30, you have no idea what I'm talking about. There used to be a thing hanging on the wall that had in my case, my daddy was too tight to spend $1.50 for the 6-foot cord. So we had the 3-foot cord that my sister stretched into the 6-foot cord. So with the wires hanging down, it never even worked half the time. So that thing hanging on the wall was in a primary location in the house, in a central location. So if the phone rang and you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to call a place. He asked that question. From that one "there's more" thought and statement, the cell phone was created. From 1973 to 1993, Motorola invested $100 million in the cell phone technology. They didn't receive a dime, not the first dollar. Someone had to think there's more. And somebody else had to believe that there's more. You don't get people to invest hundreds of millions of dollars on something that they don't believe in. So somebody has to think there's more, and somebody has to believe that, yes, that person is right, there's more. Let's look into the Bible. Let's just get in there, and let's look at a place that was good enough. Let's look at a place that was good enough. 2 Samuel chapter 5. This is probably one of the, to me, I think it can impact us individually more than any sermon I think I've ever preached. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron. And they said to him, "Behold, you are our bone and our flesh. And in times past, when Saul was king over us, it was you who led us out and brought in Israel. And the Lord said to you, you shall shepherd my people, or you be shepherd of my people, Israel, and you shall be prince over Israel." So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over all of Israel. David was 30 years old. This is very important. We're going to be all over this thing. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. At Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7.5 years, and at Jerusalem, he reigned 33.5 years. So, David began his reign at Hebron. This is good stuff. Hebron was his headquarters. It was the Ronco headquarters, man. I'm telling you, David had his round table was at Hebron. It was a good place for David. This is a good place. Man, we can prosper here. We can govern here. This is a good place. Hebron was home for 7.5 years. It was the headquarters, like I said, for his armies, for assembling his troops, for commerce, everything. Hebron was good enough for a king. It was good enough for a king. But sometimes good enough can be the enemy of God's best. Sometimes good enough can be the enemy of God's best. How's your walk with Jesus? Well, it's good enough. Hey, let's just get straight up with people and ask them the question, how's your walk with Jesus? Well, it's good enough. That don't sound too encouraging to me. It don't make me want to do it. How's your marriage? Well, it's good enough. It's good enough. That don't make me want to be married. How's your diet going? Let's move on. How's your issue with the addiction? It's good enough. How you doing with it? It's good enough. How's your Bible reading? How's your prayer life? How's your expectation of what God can do for you in your life? It's good enough. See, it's good enough. I'm telling you, I don't think people are drawn to good enough. I don't think people are lining up to say, oh, I'm so excited, I get two for the price of one. That's good enough. You know, I don't think they're excited about that. There comes a point in our lives when God says Hebron is not all that there is. Hebron is not all that there is. Let's look at verse 6. Let's look at verse 6. And the king, being David, and his men went to Jerusalem. They went against the Jebusites. These were the inhabitants of the land who was inhabiting Jerusalem. And they said to David, you will not come in here. The blind and the lame can ward you off. And they were thinking, David cannot come in here. Not only did they say it twice, say it once, they said it once and they thought it again. You will not come in here. So I want to start out by apologizing. I've borderline sinned in your presence for the last 7, 6, 8 weeks. I have neglected key points, and I'm sorry. I might have some failures in my life, but let's pray that won't be one of them. But in case you're wondering, what's Pastor talking about? Key points. Key points. I love key points. If I had a list of key points will be my number one key point. Key point number 1, know when to stay at Hebron. Key point number 1, know when to stay at Hebron. David reigned in Hebron for 7.5 years as king over Judah. They ain't all together yet. See, there's kind of a confusion over who's what and who's where and all this stuff and who's king. And David's not really king over all of Israel, but he's been esteemed as king over Hebron in his 7.5 years as a partial king. Now in chapter 5, all of the tribes have come together under one banner to appoint and anoint David as king over all of Israel. David, here we are, all 12 tribes of Israel, all families, all leaders, and we are saying at Hebron, you is my king. So you're my king, and we are all together supporting you. Now lead us. Now, see, you can't move out before God's ready for you to move out. See, David couldn't move out in year 5 because it had to be year 7.5. You can't move out till God's ready. Let me give you an example. You got a teenage daughter. Now you think to yourself, where did this precious child go that wanted to be with me every second of my life? This is hypothetical. You've got a teenage daughter that's all of a sudden a rebellious individual. Now, if we try to drag her to the Lord before she's ready, we're going to lose the battle. We're going to lose the battle right there. So here's what a recipe for losing the battle is. Going in about year 5, let's just call it year 5 of the reign of Judah. Going at year 5, she's not ready. Hey, tell her how bad she is. That'll work. Tell her how bad she is. Tell her how awful she is. Tell her how big of a mistake she is. Tell her how big of an embarrassment she is to the family. Tell her she doesn't change. She's going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell if you don't change. That'll do it. That equals losing the battle. See, David stayed the course in Hebron, and eventually Israel came to him. See, I did that for 12 years. For 12 years, I served under my pastor, and I was happy as a pig in slop, man. I was happy as I'll get out. That was my Hebron. Christ Point Church is my Jerusalem. And see, so when it came time, then I turned my attention, and God says, now it's Christ Point Church. Let's move toward it. Let's go toward that. See, stay your course while in Hebron, and when your daughter comes to her senses and she wants to join the fight, in her time, you just keep. You don't ever waver. You don't ever let the guard down. You don't ever stop doing what you're doing. You just let her see it the whole time. Then she's going to get involved in the battle, because we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Key point number 2. He hasn't called us to stop at Hebron. He's called us to take our Jerusalem. God hasn't called us to stop at Hebron. He has called us to take our Jerusalem. Notice with me, the Jebusites occupied Jerusalem. Now, I don't know if there's any history, I can't find any, that tells how in the world they ever got there to start with. It's just all of a sudden, here they are. The Jebusites, which are not God's people, They're not the nation of Israel. They are occupying what belongs to David and his family and his nation. And then not only did they occupy it, they mocked him. Now, this is the way I picture it, and I don't want you to let me go with it the way I want to go with it because I have the microphone. So I picture them putting their finger in his face and saying, "You will not get in here. You will not take this city." I see that finger in David's face. Mocked him and said, "You will not come in here." In verse 5, I want to tell you what happened. In verse 5, and I don't know if you've got it, Gwen, that's okay. But in verse 5, you remember it says, David reigned in Jerusalem for 33 and a half years. Don't stick your finger in my face and tell me what God's going to do and what he's not going to do. So this is kind of what they did. You will not come in here. And David's like, get your finger out of my face. Yeah, so we are, if God wants us in here, that's what we're going to do. And we've waited on God's time, and so we're going. I didn't try to move out without the entire nation with me. See, don't believe every finger that sticks in your face as being the truth. You will not get in here. You will not do this. See, don't believe every lie from the enemy. Matter of fact, most of what he says is going to be a lie. David's army bought into the vision of Jerusalem while they were at Hebron. I mean, think about it. David's army bought into the vision of he said, now we're going to go to Israel. I mean, to Jerusalem. Now we're going to go to Jerusalem. But he said that in Hebron. David's army bought in. Let me tell you what Christ Point Church bought into the vision that we're going to move into empowering more lives in a different community while we were in Sparta. Smithville is an example of your belief in the vision, of your saying, yes, people's lives are at stake, and I believe in people's lives being saved. I believe it, so therefore I'm buying into it while we're in Hebron. Does it make that journey easier or that battle easier? No, Jerusalem's still tough, and it's still somebody's occupying it. Just imagine somebody sitting at your table right now eating your food and ain't right, and I'm not going to have it. So that's the attitude we got to have. See, we've got an army all around us. We got to get them on their knees. That's all we got to do. Our army is around us. They're sitting beside you. If we're going to go into our own Jerusalem and take our Jerusalem, we've got to attack it, and we've got to reach and grab this one and grab that one and say, look, I need you to go on your knees with me into this journey. Key point number 3. Your city needs a new name. Your city needs a new name. David took Jerusalem, and he renamed it the City of David. He took Jerusalem, and the first thing that he did is he said, okay, we're going to call this thing something different than what it is. We're going to call it the City of David. See, there's people that need Jesus outside these walls. There's people outside there that need Jesus. See, I want you to go with me here. We're not living in Sparta, Tennessee. Start letting that filter out. Let that just go somewhere else. We're not living in Sparta, Tennessee. We're living in the city of Christ Point. We're living in the city of Christ Point. We need to start calling it what it is. And when we live in the city of Christ Point, then everybody that we come in contact with is a face that we need to see, and it's a face that needs Jesus, and it's a face and a soul that needs home, and let's bring them home. So I live in the city of Christ Point. I don't live in the city of Sparta. I live in the city of Christ Point. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. You've got this great debt, and you write a check every week for the interest or the payment on that debt. Don't write that check in your mind that I'm paying on the debt. Write that I'm paying for my freedom. Stop calling it debt and start calling it freedom. My marriage, stop calling it failed and troubled and start calling it successful and sought after. How's your marriage? It's falling apart. No. My marriage is successful. Are we in a tough spot? Yes, but my marriage is successful. Are we okay today and maybe a little fighting tomorrow? Yes, but my marriage is successful because I'm calling it by a different name. Now here's the one that gets me, the lost loved one. You know, how's your son? He's all right. He's lost, going to hell. He don't change. He's going to go to hell. He's lost. He's just awful. It's awful. You know, stop calling our lost loved ones lost and going to hell and start calling them pre-Christians. Yeah, how's your husband? Oh, he's great. He's a pre-Christian right now, but man, what do you mean by that? It means he ain't saved yet. That means I'm not calling him lost and going to hell. I'm making sure the devil knows that when I call him a pre-Christian, that means I'm expecting something from my Lord. So that's why we do it. And for the love of all that's holy, stop calling yourself what others have called you. Stop calling yourself what you think in your mind unqualified. I'm unqualified. I have a distorted past. I'm a very distorted past. I'm all washed up. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too tall. I'm too skinny. I'm too fat. I mean, you know what? Too much baggage. I have too much baggage. Stop calling ourselves that. Which brings us to key point number 4. The enemy is a desperate liar. Not just a liar, but a desperate liar. He will use your past against you if we will let him. He will use it against us if we let him. Verse 6 says, the Jebusites stuck their finger in the face of David. Now, who does that? They had a great disrespect for a neighboring king. Now, they knew David was coming to take back the city that belonged to them, but they stuck a finger in his face and they used his past against him. You will not come in here. I mean, think about this. You can't do this. You're a ditch digger. Think about this. You can't do this. How many times have you been married? You want to try to start counting them? You can't do this. You're not old enough to do this. You can't do this. You barely passed high school. I joined the club on that one. But you know, you can't do this. You can't do. They used his past against him. You will not come in here. Even the lame and the blind can ward you off. See, remember, when the enemy resorts to this kind of tactic, it's because he's desperate. It's because he's desperate and he's afraid of the Jesus in you. That's why he's coming so hard against everything in your mind that says you can't do it. You will not come in here. Let me explain to you the lame and the blind. Now, I've heard a friend of mine say this before, and that's where I got it. And so I'm not saying this is a Steve thing, but I think it's very, very worth mentioning. See, David, in his lineage, David came from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. When they say lame and blind, Jacob got his hip knocked out of socket and walked pretty much crippled the rest of his life by the Lord. His father Isaac was so blind that he couldn't even see who he was anointing as the next successor to his birthright. So, your family is a family full of blind people and crippled people. Even the lame and the blind can ward you off. In other words, I'm using everything that you would think that would disqualify you to disqualify you. So, your past says, nobody wants me. Your past says, nobody is lining up to ask me to be a part. You know what? No, it does not. No, that is a lie. Your past says, God can't use you. Yes, He can and He will. And that is a lie. No, it doesn't say that. Your past does not dictate that. Your past says, you know, lame and blind people are in your family. See, nothing is ever wasted on the vision. You know what? You've got a history of people with alcoholism in your family. You can't do this. You've got a past in your own life that is very distorted. You can't do this. Yes, you can. If you think you don't, David had a distorted past too. David had a messed up family too. And David said, hey, this is how it's going to go down. Key point number 5. The keys to Jerusalem can be found in the sewer. We don't need to look for them anywhere other than the sewer. They can be found in the sewer. Verse 8, let's look at it. They can be found and located. David said on that day, stick your finger in my face again. Whoever, and he turns around and says, whoever would strike down the Jebusites, let him get up the water shaft to attack the lame and the blind. I kind of see David doing the lame and the blind who are hated by David. So, you know what? I hate that mentality. I hate that terminology. And some scholars say, well, David hated people who were lame and blind. Well, the funny thing to me, he took a lame man as his son and brought him into his home as his son. So that ain't true. Therefore, it is said, the blame and the blame and the lame. You know what I'm saying. Should have went past 12th grade, right? The water shaft. Now let's look at this. The water shaft in terms 2019. You know what the terms water shaft is? The sewer. That's what we would call the sewer today. Everything. Now I want you to hear what I'm saying. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I want you to think about this pretty good. Everything has to have a way to get stuff out. Even an engine has an exhaust. I think you're starting to color in between the lines. I'm painting right now. You know, even the great city of Jerusalem had a poop chute. The great city of Jerusalem had a way to get the sewage out. So that's the enemy's mistake right there. Is the enemy thinks that he thinks that you and I aren't willing to crawl through the crap to get to the victory. That's what he underestimates us. And the truth is, most people in this country, in this world, in the Christian faith are unwilling. Most are unwilling to crawl through what it takes to get there. You know what? Victory looks pretty good. I just don't know if I'm in on all that or not. See, half the marriages in the United States end in divorce. Wow, Pastor, you're razor sharp. You just now figuring that one out? Well, you know, hey, it's been a statistic for a while. Half the marriages in the United States end in divorce. Half the marriages in the church end in divorce. It ain't no difference. The church is not any different than the world. We have the same amount of divorce rate, 1 and 2. It's because half the population is not willing to crawl through the crap in order to reach the victory in their marriage. Hey, guys, you were doing this, and you stopped on us, and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christ Point Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.